Good morning and greetings to all of those out there that are of the elect, my brothers and sisters that are scattered all throughout the four corners of the globe, those of you that are all the way down in South America, Canada, all the way in the UK, all the way down to the Caribbeans, the islands, all the way to the east, west coast of Africa, all the way to the war-torn Middle East. And I can't forget about my brothers and sisters that's here in the U.S., which are walking and standing firm in this truth. So I greet all of you this morning in the name of our Father, Abba Yahuwah, and also in the name of our King, Yahuwshuwa, MASHIYACH. Now, this morning, my brothers and sisters, I'm going to be moving into my brand new breakdown, teaching on the name of Yahuwshuwa, the only name under the heavens given among men, whereby we must be saved. I'm here to tell you that the Mashiach does not have many names, but the Mashiach only has one name, that name being Yahuwshuwa. So this morning, I'm going to be clearing up all of the confusion that the enemy has created through his messengers by the introduction of all of these false names that we see floating around down here in Babylon today, and elevating those who have not come into this knowledge to a higher revelation. Now, if you would, open up with me this morning to the book of Zechariah, chapter 6. This is where we're going to start. And the reference tools that I'm going to be using today are going to be my Strong's Concordance. And I'm going to also be using my Tanakh. And I'm going to be using the JPS version, okay? For all of those of you out there that's will be following along with your Tanakh. And I'm going to be back and forth between my Tanakh and my KJV, when I'm going back and forth from the New Testament to the Old Testament for edification purposes, okay? So if you would, open up with me to the book of Zechariah, Zechariah chapter 6. Zechariah chapter 6. Okay, Zechariah chapter 6. And I'm going to start reading at verse number 11, okay? It states, "Then take silver and gold, and make crowns, and set them up on the head of Joshua, the son of Jehozadak, the high priest," okay? "And speak unto him, saying, Thus speaketh Yahuwah of hosts, saying, Behold the man whose name is the branch, and he shall grow up out of his place, and he shall build the temple of Yahuwah." So now, the first thing that I want those of you out there that are of the elect, and also those of you that's going to come through and view this teaching in hopes of coming into the accurate knowledge of the truth, okay, the entire truth, to know is that this is the first place that any and everybody that has a desire to know what the true name is of the Mashiach must begin, okay? This is the beginning point. Everybody must start here. And this is why in the teaching that I did on Jesus Christ the forgery, I explained to you that we do not need the Greek New Testament writings in order to come into the accurate knowledge of what the Son's true name is, because the name that the Mashiach would have when he came to the earth had already been prophesied all the way back in the days of the prophet Zechariah. Okay, so the name was prophesied about before he even came to the earth. Okay, so this is why we must begin here, because this is the specific place in the scriptures where the prophecy came forth, and so this is where everybody must begin. Now, you have a lot of people out there that's trying to come into the accurate knowledge of the truth, and then you have all of these different messengers that's working for the enemy that begin to present all of these different names to them, and will say things like, oh, well, you know, this name comes from Yasha, or this name comes from Yeshua, this name comes from Joshua, or this traces back to Hosea. And see, we have to understand all this does is confuses the mind of the people that's actually trying to come into the accurate knowledge of the truth. And so this morning, I'm going to be cutting through all of that confusion, and I'm getting ready to show you how to get through the maze of all of the false names to get to the true name where the true salvation lies at. Okay? So now, we see right here in verse number 12 when it says, "And speak unto him, saying, Thus speaketh Yahuwah of hosts, saying, Behold the man." Okay, so now when it says, "Behold the man whose name," who is he talking about right here? We have to understand that he's speaking about the man that he told the prophet Zechariah to go and put a crown of silver and gold on his head. Joshua, the son of Jehozadak, this is the man that he's talking about. So when it says, "Behold the man whose name is the branch. Now we have to understand that Joshua, the son of Jehozadak, he wasn't the branch. We have to understand that he was a high priest during this time, okay? So what we have to understand is that we know that the branch is referring to who? Yahuwshuwa, because what? Why? He declared himself to be what? The branch. So once we understand that this is where the prophecy went forth from what the Mashiach name will be when he came to the earth, then this is the place that we must start. Now, to those of you that's following along in your Tanakhs, something that I just want to touch on real quick for edification purposes, because, you know, as you read the different translations, they will have different renderings of this actual verse, okay? What I want to explain to you is that the KJV is holding more close to what's actually there in the Hebrew than a lot of these other different versions that I have read. For an example, we see here in the JPS, it says in verse number 12, and say to him, thus said Yahuwah of hosts, behold, a man called the branch shall branch out from the place where he is. But what we have to understand is that if we look over into the Hebrew there, okay, and if you're following along with me in a JPS, if you look at verse number 12 and you go all the way to the end of that verse down there where you see the Aleph, the Mem, and the Resh, if you look, which is the Hebrew word Amar, but if you look right up under that, you see the word what? Shem or Sham. And we know in Hebrew that means what? Name. So when you read in the KJV, when it says, behold the man whose name is the branch, that's holding close to what's there in the Hebrew. Okay, right here when it says, behold a man called the branch, that, I mean, that can confuse people if they don't actually know what's actually there in the Hebrew. You see what I'm saying? So the KJV is holding more closer to what's actually there in the Hebrew. So I just wanted to touch on that quick for edification purposes, because I know you have all these different versions of Bibles and you have all the different versions of the Tanakhs. Okay, so now that we understand that the Mashiach will have the same name as Joshua, the son of Jehozadak, the only other thing left to do from here is what? Is to look at the name Joshua, the name that's under the Hebrew language, because we have to understand that Joshua is nothing more than what? A translation of a Hebrew name. Okay, so we have to grasp that. So once we go under the English language and we look at the name that appears in the Masoretic text, this is the name that we see there. Okay, so now, the reason why I have this arrow going from the 6-letter rendering and this 5-letter rendering to 3091 is because when you go to your Strong's Concordance and you look at 3091, one thing that you're going to understand is that you're going to see that when you look up 3091 for Yahuwshuwa, you're going to see these two renderings in your Strong's Concordance. And the reason why, because both of these renderings of the name appears in the Masoretic text for the same person. Okay, so basically what this caboose is showing you right here in the 5-letter rendering of the name is that the Y is actually there, but because it's been removed, when you say the name, you say it as the Y there, because as the Y being there, because they know that it's there. But I'm going to be breaking that down more in depth as we move along through this teaching this morning. So this is the name that appears there. So now once we understand that this is the name that's in the prophecy, the only other thing that's left to do is for us to put all of the other names out there that people are saying, oh, this is the name of the Mashiach, and match it up to the name that's in the prophecy and see if it adds up. Those that do not line up with the name that's in the prophecy, they must be what? Uprooted and removed. Okay, so now the first name that we're going to start with is the name Jesus, which we know comes from what? Jesus. Okay. From Jesus, and we know that's at the Greek 24. So now, when you look up the name Jesus, they're going to tell you it comes from the Greek 24, the word Jesus. Okay, so now if we were actually looking at the Greek manuscripts, we would see this in the Greek. This would be the actual name that's there in the Greek. Okay, you will see something like this there if you actually looking at the Greek manuscript. So this is the same as that. This is just translated so that you can know what this means. Okay, so now what we have to understand is that a lot of people have the feeling that, oh, well, if the name Jesus traces back to Yeshua, or Yahuwshuwa or Joshua, then we're talking about the same thing. It doesn't matter. What I'm getting ready to show you is that the name Jesus does not trace directly back to the name that's in the prophecy. which we know when you go to 3091, it says Yahuwshuwa. We have to understand that the name Jesus came from the name Yeshua and not Yahuwshuwa. And what we get ready to find out is that Yeshua is not the name that's in the prophecy. Okay? So this is why we got to understand that Jesus is a false name. Okay? And so is Yeshua, as I'm getting ready to show you. So now, this letter right here in Greek is an iota, and this letter right there is an eta. Okay? And so what you have to understand in Hebrew, that's only one letter. It's the yod. Okay, and so what we have to understand is that the Greek, in the Greek language, they do not just have a single letter for the yod. Okay, so we have to understand that they needed the iota and the eta in order to try to get close to the sound that the yod makes. Okay, this is why when you see the Zeus, the they use that to try to get close to the sound that the yod makes. And really, when you look at when you go to 3091. And you look at the name there, Yahuwshuwa, you have to understand that the translators held more closely to the Greek translation or sound of the name rather than the Hebrew. This is why when you see that Yahuwshuwa, that comes from Greek. Okay, and they need both of these letters to get close to the sound that the yod make. Okay, so this is where that EA comes from, and in English that would be J. The iota would be J, and the eta would be the E. Okay, so now the next letter right here. We know that in Hebrew, in Yeshua, you got a shin that's coming next. But because they do not have a shin in the Greek language, you have to understand that they chopped it down and they reduced it to sigma, okay, which is S. So this is where the S comes from right here, okay, in Jesus. Now, we know that the next letter that comes in the name Yeshua, and I'm just going to put that E in there because we know there's an E in Yeshua. But the next letter that comes there is going to be the Y. Okay, now in Greek, both of these letters is representing the Y. Okay, and then Jesus, this is only one letter. So even the Greeks understood that the Y was a double letter, and of course they understood it because they got their alphabet straight from the Phoenician alphabet, and they recognized this Y as a double letter. Okay, so we can see in the name how they understood that, you know, both of these letters represented that one letter. Okay, so it will be representing the Y. Okay, so this is why when you see the Y, you see that UW there. Okay, because the vowel is coming from what? The consonant. Okay, it's simple. Now, we know that there's an A that comes next in the name of Yeshua, and it's coming from the Ayin. Something quickly that I want to go back and just touch on real quick, because in the teaching that I did on Jesus Christ the forgery, I kind of got ahead of myself, and I said that they do not have an Ayin in the Greek language, but they do. Okay, what they did was this. And I'm going to go more in depth as we move along through this teaching on this letter Ayin when we get to the false name Yahuwshuwa. You have to understand that in Hebrew, that letter makes more of an ah sound. Okay, in the Greeks, they transliterated it as O to make an O sound. Okay, so what they did is they removed that letter entirely from the name which they got from Yeshua, because they said that masculine names could not end with vowels in Greek. So they removed that and just put a sigma on the back. So this is another sigma, and this is where the S comes from in Jesus and Yesu. So technically all you have that they got from Yeshua is really just Jisu or Yeshu. Okay, because the S don't even belong. It's not even part of the name. This is something that they have added because, you know, masculine names could end with vowels in Greek. Okay, so they have added that to the to the script. It's not there to the name. Okay, is what we need to understand. So now, when we look at Yeshua in the Hebrew, because now we know that it came from Yeshua, what do you have there? You have Yo. You have Shin. You have Y. And then you have Ayin. Okay? This is what you have there. And we know that this is Y. You know this is SH. We know the Y is there. Okay? So this is where Yeshua comes from. We have to understand that when we look at the name Yeshua, we have to understand that up here we see that there's a H in the Y right there. Okay? We don't see that in the name of Yeshua. This is what we have to understand. This is why Yeshua is a false name, because it's not the name that's in the prophecy. And see, when I explained to you that the reason why they have Jesus in the New Testament and Joshua in the Old Testament is because they did not get the name Jesus from Joshua, which, you know, at 3091 they say Yahuwshuwa. Because if they did, there's no way they would have got this IE right here, okay, in the Mashiach's name. This iota and this eta, it would have been more like this. You would have had a iota and an omega, which in Greek is IO. Okay, so when you go to names like John, which we know is Yahuwshuwa, that has the Yahu, we see that it's been shortened down to this. If you look at it in the Greek, okay, you're not going to see that iota in the eta. Okay, so when you think about it, when you look at the name Joshua, we have to understand that Joshua is a closer translation or transliteration than Jesus is, because we have to grasp that in the Greek language they have no H. Okay, they have no letter for the A. So what they did is all the names that had Yahoo, they shortened down to what? To I-O. Okay, to the iota and the omega. Okay, the I-O. So like if you go into the book of Matthews and you go through the genealogy and you look at names like Jehoshaphat and, you know, Jehochanan, the names that have the Yahoo, they have all been shortened down to I-O. And this is why when you look at the Greek, you see that iota and that omega there. Okay, so there's no way they could have ever got this iota and eta if, you know what I'm saying, they actually transliterated the name Yahuwshuwa into Greek. Okay, so when you look at the name Joshua, this is more close to the Greek practices. Okay, they didn't have an H, so they shortened it down to I-O. This Joshua right here, we know this would just be like I-O. Okay, so this is what they did because they have no A. They shortened it down, and then you have the Shua there. Okay, in the back. So this is a closer translation of the name that's in the prophecy than Jesus, is what we have to understand. So this is why when you go into the New Testament and you see, Jesus, and then you go back into the Old Testament and you see Joshua, and they say, well, if they're both the same names, why do you have two different names? It's because they got the name Jesus from Yeshua, and the name Joshua actually came from Yahuwshuwa. Okay? This is what we have to understand. Now, the reason why they say that the name Yeshua traces back to Yahuwshuwa is because if we go with me to the book of Nehemiah real quick, Nehemiah chapter 12, and I'm going to show you why they say that it traces back. Now, okay, we're in Nehemiah chapter 12, and let's start reading at verse 26. It says, these were in the time of Jehoiakim, the son of Jeshua, son of Jehozadak. Okay, so they're still speaking about the same Joshua that we're reading about here in Zechariah chapter 6. Same person. Okay, but we have to understand that during the Babylonian captivity, they short names down. Okay, so what you have to understand, to those of you that's following along in your Tanakh, you can see how there in the Hebrew, what's there for Joshua, the son of Jehozadak. You see Yeshua there. Okay, this is what's actually there in the Hebrew. Now, if you go with me to Nehemiah chapter 8, go with me to Nehemiah chapter 8. Okay, now I'm in Nehemiah chapter 8, and let's start reading at verse number 17. It says, the whole community that returned from the captivity made booths and dwelt in the booths. The Israelites had not done so from the days of Joshua, the son of Nun. Now, when you look at, and I know if you're in your KJV, it says Jeshua, but now if you look in the Hebrew there, or what's actually there, what do you see? You see the name Yeshua there. So what we have to understand is that we know that, this is the reason why we know that Yeshua is not the name, and it can't be the name, because nowhere in the scriptures before the Babylonian captivity do we see Joshua, the son of Nun, name being shortened down to Yeshua. We don't see it. So what we have to understand is that if we never see his name being shortened down to Yeshua, then we have to understand that this is something that he was never called. This was something that they did in the Babylonian captivity. And we know this because, for the simple fact, when we look at the name Joshua, the son of Jehozadak, when he came out of the Babylonian captivity, what we read here in the book of Zechariah is right after the Babylonian captivity, where the Israelites went back into their land. Okay, so if Yeshua was a name that was acceptable to go by, that would be the name that we will see here in the prophecy. This is what we have to understand. But we don't see that here. We see now that they're back in the actual land, we can see that they're holding to the actual name that's there. This is what we have to understand. Now, if we would have seen Joshua the son of Nun name being shortened down to Yeshua before that period, or after that period, then we can say, okay, well, yeah, it might be Yeshua, but we don't see it. This is something they did in the Babylonian captivity. Because in none of the writings before the Babylonian captivity do we ever see the name Joshua the son of Nun shortened down to Yeshua. And so once they came out of the Babylonian captivity, and we can see right here in Zechariah chapter 6, verse 11, when it says Joshua, we don't see Yeshua there. This is what we see there. So this is what lets us know that it's a false name. It's simple. Okay? It's not the name that's in the prophecy, so we have to uproot and remove these names right out of the way. It's simple, my brothers and sisters. Okay? Now, excuse me, the next name that we're getting ready to look at, okay, is the name Yahuwshuwa. Okay? Because you have a lot of people that believe that the name is Yahuwshuwa. Okay, now what we have to understand about the name Yahuwshuwa is that the reason why Yahuwshuwa is not the name because you have something that's missing in the name. You have a Y that's missing there. Okay? So we line all the names up with the name that's in the prophecy, the ones that don't line up, they have to be removed. If we look at what we have here in the Hebrew, you have Yo, Hey, okay? You have the Shin, you have the Wa, and then you have the Ein. Okay? And so when you look at that, this is all you have there. You have the Yo, the Hey, the Shin, the Wa, and of course they have you there, so I'm gonna just put that there. And then you have the A there. Okay, so when you put the vowel in there and you look at the name that's there in the Hebrew, we can see how this name does not match up with the name that's in the prophecy. We have to understand that there's a Y that's missing there, that's missing from this name. So we can clearly see that this name does not match up to the name that's in the prophecy. And this is why it's a false name. Okay? It's lacking a Y. Okay? It's simple, my brothers and sisters. This is how you get through the maze of all of the false names. You put them up there, you line them up to the name of the prophecy, and you go from there. Now, the next name that I'm getting ready to look at is the name getting ready to look at the name Yeshaya, okay? And this is a name that you see, they camp GOCC, you see them peddling this name. They telling the people that the son name is Yeshaya and the father name is Ahia, okay? Got people straight lost. Now, they getting this name right here from, in the Hebrew, the 3469 is where they're getting it from. Now, I watched the breakdown teaching that the leader did and proclaimed this name to the people and to the world as this was the MASHIYACH's true name. And what he did was he went into the book of Hosea, okay? Hosea chapter 2 verse 16, when the father said that we are no longer call him Belly, but we're going to call him Ishi. Now, what you have to understand that in the Hebrew, there's two words for the word Ishi, okay? You have the Hebrew, the Hebrew 376, okay, which actually means man or, you know, husband or whatnot. And then you have Yishi at 3469 is where they're getting this Yeshaya from, okay. So what you have to understand is that where the brother was in error at is because when you go into the book of Hosea chapter 2 verse 16, what you're going to find out is that the issue that's being used there is the Hebrew 376, okay, is what they're using, and it's basically come from the word ishi, which you see it mainly used as man, okay? But it can actually be used as husband, okay? So this is basically what is being said there in Hosea chapter 2 when the Father said, you'll no longer call me belly. So they took that, ran with it, and said that, oh, the son name is Yeshaya, and this word, Yeshi, don't even appear there in the book of Hosea chapter 2 verse 16, okay? This is what we need to understand. It's not there. So when we look at the name Yeshaya that's here in 3469, the reason why they're saying that this is the name is because if you look here, it says from 3467. We know 3467 is what? It's coming from Yasha. So what you have to understand is that when we look at the Hebrew that's there for Yishi, okay, you have to understand that all you have there is Yod, okay? You have the Shin, you have the Ayin, and then you have another Yod right there, okay? You have another Yod right there. And so this is how they get the name Yeshaya, okay? You have the Yod, okay? You have the Shin, okay? You have the Ayin, and then you have another Yod right there, okay? And this is how they get Yeshaya. So we have to understand, my brothers and sisters, that when we look at the Hebrew there that's for Yeshaya, and we look at what's there in the Hebrew for in the prophecy, we have to understand that this name does not match up with that whatsoever, okay? And we're measuring everything from this because this is the name that's in the prophecy. You see, people can talk all day, oh, well, Yeshua, this means this, or Yasha means this and that, but at the end of the day, we have to go back to the book, to the name that's in the prophecy, and this name does not match up whatsoever, okay? So you have to understand the people that's calling the son Yeshaya and the father Ahaya, these people are lost, my brothers and sisters. And this is why it's necessary for these type of teachers to go forth in order to wake people up so that they can come from up under all of that bondage that's out there. Okay? Got people calling on the name of Yeshaya. False name. Now, the next name that we're getting ready to look at, okay, is Yahuwshuwa. Okay? Yahushua. This is the next name we're getting ready to look at. Now, the people that call on the name Yahushua, they get this by going here. They take the Yod, they get the Y, okay? Then you got the Hey. And I'm just go ahead and put the vowels in. We know that's Yah. Okay, you have the Y. They recognize it as a U. You have the Shin right here, okay? SH. And what they do is they disregard that caboose that's there. And then this is how they get Yahushua, because we know the Ayin is the I right there, okay? So now what we have to understand is this. To all of the people out there that believe that the son's true name is Yahushua, okay? What you have to grasp is that once you disregard that caboose right there, that's under the 5-letter rendering of the name, you have to understand that once you do that, you create a confusion that the people that say that the son's name is Yahushua cannot explain. Okay? Because see, the caboose is letting you know that both of these names are the same. Okay? We have to understand that when we go into the Masoretic text, we see the 6-letter rendering of the name and the 5-letter rendering of the name for the same person. Okay? So for Joshua, son of Nun, we see both of these renderings for his name. So when you have the caboose there, both of these names are in harmony. They're letting you know that although the Y is not there, you still pronounce it as the Y because they see the Y there in the 6-letter rendering of the name in the Masoretic text. So now, once you disregard that caboose, now you create confusion because if you're saying this name is Yahushua, you have to understand when we look at the 6-letter rendering of the name, that does not say Yahushua because you have a Y that's there. So this is what we have to understand. When we look at the name Yahuwshuwa, we have to understand that this name is perfectly in harmony with what we see here because we have the 6-letter rendering, and although they took the Y out, the caboose is letting you know you still say it with the Y. If you say the name is Yahushua, now you've created a whole other name. And you have not dealt with the 6-letter rendering of the name because we know it's there. Okay? Now we know that it appears 2 times in the Masoretic text, right? At the book of Deuteronomy chapter 3, verse 21, and Judges chapter 2, verse 7. So let's turn to Judges chapter 2, verse 7. Because my brothers and sisters, This stuff right here is really truly easy to grasp, okay? The Father is not an author of confusion. We have to understand that the Hebrew writers that wrote these scrolls, they wrote and spoke Hebrew. So we have to understand that we know it's speaking about the same person. It's not like he's talking about two different persons. The same person. Why would he put the name Yahusha and Yahuwshuwa for the same person? That does not make logical sense. If you see the sixth letter there, you have to understand that this is the authority, because if you disregard the caboose here, you can't get back to this. You can't justify this name right here. How can you clear that name up if you see this name for Joshua, the son of Nun, in the Masoretic text, but then you say the name is Yahusha? Because you still have a Y there that you have to deal with. So we have to understand that this is just simple. We have to grasp that the sixth letter written is there, so we know it's there, and they removed the Y, and the caboose is that you know that the Y is there. And I'm getting ready to prove this to you. Now, go over to the book of Judges chapter 2. Judges chapter 2, excuse me. Now, we're in Judges chapter 2, and I'm going to start reading at verse number 7. It says, the people served Yahuwah during the lifetime of Joshua and the lifetime of the older people who lived on after Joshua and who had witnessed all the marvelous deeds that Yahuwah had wrought for Yashua. Now, what we have to understand is that if you're following along in your Tanakh with me, if you look at the first Joshua, when it says during the lifetime of Joshua, when we look over at the Masoretic text, what do we see there? We see the 5-letter rendering with the caboose there, right? Now, if we, in the same verse, if we go down to when it says who lived on after Joshua, in the same verse, what do we see? The 6-letter rendering of the name. So what we have to grasp is that the writer who wrote this, that's writing this book, spoke Hebrew and wrote Hebrew. So why would he put two different names in the same verse talking about the same person? They saying it's Yahusha. We know that it's Yahuwshuwa. Okay? We see both renderings in the scriptures in the same verse for the same person. So we have to understand to remove all of the confusion so that everything that's in the scripture is flowing in harmony. We have to understand that when we see the caboose there, we have to understand that it's representing the Y. Okay? And both of those names are in harmony. But if you're saying this name is Yahusha, this don't say Yahusha up there, because you still have a Y there that you have to deal with. This is what we have to understand. Now, I know and understand that this is going to be hard for a lot of people to grasp, okay? And really, my brothers and sisters, it's simple. Because if we look at the English language today, somebody may text you and say, what up? Okay? Somebody might text you and say, what up? Okay? But at the end of the day, if we're talking proper English, we know that the H is there. Okay? This is the correct way to spell that. But this is not going to stumble you, because when people write that, you know they're saying, what's up? Okay? So this is the same thing here. The people spoke and wrote Hebrew. Okay? So because the Y was removed from there, they understood and knew that the Y was there. But we can't, if, you know, people was looking at this 2,000 years down the road, a whole other different civilization, they can't take this and just read this and say, oh, this says wet up or what up, when we know that it's actually what, the word is what. Okay, and they're giving you the proper grammar to let you know that the H is there. You can't disregard that, okay, because you don't speak this language. This is what we need to understand. So if the people that say that the name is Yahuwah, if they truly spoke Hebrew, they would understand that the Y is there, because they know Shah's not even a word. So now, as I just explained, a lot of people are not going to be able to grasp that, you know, because the more simpler things in life are just hard for people to grasp. So the next thing we're getting ready to do, we're getting ready to go to the Dead Sea Scrolls. Okay, and this is pretty much going to end all of the confusion. Okay, and what I'm getting ready to do, my brothers and sisters, is I'm getting ready to put up on the board all of these different scrolls that you can go and look at. Okay, it's going to actually be 3 of them. And of course, I know a lot of people, you know, when they go to the Dead Sea Scrolls, to those who have been, I know some people really don't like to, you know, go through, you know, all of the information that's there, okay, because, you know what I'm saying, it's pretty much, it's all Hebrew. So what you have to understand is that I pretty much simplified everything for you. I'm getting ready to give you everywhere that you can just go, where you can just go straight to these scrolls, where you're not going to have any problems whatsoever, and you can also view these things so that you can understand exactly what I'm saying. And you know, for those of the elect, it's going to be important for you to understand these things so that you can know the truth. You know what I'm saying? And so, you know, we just have to, you know, sometimes we got to dig deep. So I've already done all of the footwork for you. All you have to do is just go there, okay, and just check it out in your spare time, okay? So, you know, my brothers and sisters, you know, it really feel good, man, to be in this war and fighting on the right side after, you know, being in darkness for so long. So, you know, we have to understand that we're actually, you know, we're actually in a war. I know sometimes it don't seem like it, but it truly is, and we're actually warring against the powers of darkness, okay? So this is why it's just necessary for teachings like this to come forth. I know I did a breakdown almost about a year ago, but, you know, it's all, you know, there always comes a time to, you know, revise and update things, you know, because the knowledge and understanding increases. So basically what I have done, my brothers and sisters, is I have simplified everything for you right here. All you have to do is when you go to the Dead Sea Scrolls, and the Dead Sea Scrolls are online, you can go, just type up Dead Sea Scrolls. When you go there, just go to Archives, okay? And all you do is you type in the name Joshua, okay? You type in the name Joshua. And when you type in the name Joshua, a lot of different scrolls are going to pop up, okay? You're going to have a list. It might have, you know, 6 or 9 on there. And then you can load more on there. Well, what I have done is I have simplified everything for you. When you go through those different scrolls, I mean, I encourage you to look at it. If, you know what I'm saying, if, you have the time, but if you don't have the time, when you tap on those scrolls, I gave you the numbers right here, okay? You're going to go to plate 1092, okay? You got fragment 1 right here, fragment 3, and then this one is like, it's got the pound number, but it's in 1092 also, okay? So once you go through it, you'll see what I'm saying. But once you go, all you need is this number right here, this B number that you see there. This will let you know if you're looking at the exact scroll. So if you tap on the scroll and you don't see these numbers on there, then that lets you know that this is not the scroll that I'm talking about. So you don't have to just, you know, waste your time looking through all of it. This is gonna get you to the exact same scroll to let you know the ones that I'm looking at, okay? Now, let me put the verses that these are in. This one, fragment number 1, is Joshua 8:3. Joshua 8:3. Now this one, and this is the one we're getting ready to look at. This is Joshua 6:8. And this one right here is Joshua 8:35. So now, this is the thing. Now, if you would turn me to the book of Joshua chapter 6. Joshua chapter 6. Okay, so now we're in Joshua chapter 6, verse 8. So now, this is one of those favorite scrolls that the Yahuwshuwa people like to run to, okay, because they see the 5-letter rendering in there and they get excited. But what you have to understand that in this fragment right here, you're going to see the 6-letter rendering is going to be at in Joshua 6, verse 8, but at 6:6, it's going to have the 5-letter rendering, okay, of the name. And this is where you like to run to. But now, this is what we have to understand. We're in Joshua chapter 6. Let's start reading at verse number 8. It says, when Joshua, now when we look at Joshua right here, okay, because this is where it's at, we see the 5-letter rendering with the caboose, okay? That's where the 6-letter rendering of the name is at in the Dead Sea Scrolls. Now, when we jump up to verse number 6 right here where it says Joshua, son of Nun, this is where the 5-letter rendering appears at. So now what we have to grasp is that, once again, I just explained to you that the writer was writing this fragment was somebody that's wrote and spoke Hebrew. Okay, so we know that he's writing about Joshua. He did not put Yahushua and Yahuwshuwa in the same place, and it's talking about the same person. It's simple. Now, this is the final straw. We know that caboose is there because when we look at Joshua chapter 6, verse number 8, okay, to those of you following along with me in your Tanakh or whatever tools you have, when we look at Joshua chapter 6, verse number 8, what do we see there in the Hebrew? We see the 5-letter rendering with the caboose. So this is verifying what the Masoretes did was correct when they put that caboose under the shin. Because when we go in our Masoretic text, we don't see the 6-letter rendering right here in verse number 8. This is what we have to understand. So because we don't see it there, and we know that the Dead Sea Scrolls is the authority, because we have to grasp that the Masoretic text only traces back to around the 9th and 10th century. The Dead Sea Scroll predates that. So we have to understand that, you know, the Masoretic text was already in circulation before the Dead Sea Scrolls came. So when the Dead Sea Scrolls came, this was showing what the Masoretes did and what they didn't do that was right. So we can understand that when they put that caboose under the shin to let you know that the Y is there, we know that was right. Because if we go into all three of these verses right here, because you got people that get excited, they say, oh, the 6-letter rendering only appears twice. This appears 200 sometimes, but with the Dead Sea Scrolls, it's helping us to understand. And then the 6th letter is all through the Dead Sea Scrolls, but all I need is 3 witnesses to do what I need to do today. What we need to grasp is that we can see in 3 verses right here that the 6th letter is there, but we don't see them in the Masoretic text. So in all those places that they're saying, they're getting excited and say, oh, it's 200 sometimes. Really, it's lesser than that, because the Dead Sea Scrolls is bearing a whole different record. This is what we have to understand. So when we go into the Masoretic text, and we go to Joshua chapter 6 and all these other verses, and we see the 5-letter rendering with the caboose, that's in line with what the Masoretes did, and it's also in line with what's in the Dead Sea Scrolls. As I just explained to you, when you remove that caboose from there, it creates confusion, because now you've created a name that's not even there. The people that speak in Hebrew letting you know that Shah ain't no word. So they letting you know that when you say that, you say it with the Y. And we know when the Masoretes put that caboose down there and let you know it's right there, the Dead Sea Scrolls is bearing record, because why? When we go into the Tanakh, what do we see there? We see the 5-letter rendering. But the Dead Sea Scrolls that predates the Masoretic text let us know that the 6-letter rendering is there. It's simple. You see, what we have to understand is that people get so excited when they say, oh, there go Yahuwshuwa, there go the 5-letter rendering. But what they don't understand is this. When we go into the scriptures and we look at the book of Isaiah, I think the oldest scroll that they have found on Isaiah traces all the way back to the BC times, right? But that scroll that they found is no different from the one that we have in the KJV. Now, you might have little minors and errors, and that comes with translating things. You have little errors, but for the most part, I'm going to say 98, 97% of that scroll is the exact same thing that we have in our KJVs. And when we go in the book of Isaiah in chapter 1 and we see Isaiah the son of Amos, when we look at that scroll, we can see that. So if we can go into the Dead Sea Scrolls and see that at Joshua 6 verse 8, the 6-letter rendering is there, we should be able to see it in our Tanakhs. It should be in the Masoretic text in these same places. And so because we don't see that, we can see that it was removed. And the Masoretes was letting you know that it was there. So this is what we have to understand. It's simple, my brothers and sisters. This ends all of that. When you got the name Yahuwshuwa, this is in line with this name when you have the caboose there, because you can take a Y from that and get this and still pronounce this as the Y being there. But if you remove the caboose, you can't get back to that, because you're basically saying that that's not there. It's simple. In the places in the Masoretic text where this appears, that's not Yahuwshuwa. So if you stand at the son name is Yahuwshuwa, when you get to those places, that don't say Yahuwshuwa. Okay? And when we say that this name is Yahuwshuwa, and in the places where you see the 5-letter rendering with the caboose, and we say that that's also Yahuwshuwa, we know that's right, because we can see in the Dead Sea Scrolls where the 6-letter rendering actually appears for the name, but we don't see it in the Masoretic text. This is what we have to grasp. Okay? The other thing, they say, okay, well, the Shah is coming from Yasha. What you have to understand is that I just took you to Nehemiah chapter 8 and Nehemiah chapter 12, and I showed you that for Joshua the son of Nun and Joshua the son of Jehozadak, when the name was shortened down, what was it shortened down to? It was shortened down to Yeshua, not Yasha. You see, what we have to understand is that when you go to 3091, they tell you that the name comes from what? 3467 and 3068, okay? But we know that 3068, this is where the Yahoo coming from. So once you remove that Yahoo out the way, all you have left is that Shah. So what you have to understand is that if they saying that the name actually comes from 3068 and 3467, when they shorten the name down, why didn't they shorten it down to Yasha? This is why they tell you to compare 1954 and 3442. Because the name has been shortened down to Yeshua. It wasn't shortened down to Yasha. So if it came from Yasha, that means what they did was they put a whole nother name in there. Because once they removed the Yahoo, if the Shah came from Yasha, they should have had Yasha there. So this is based on, so the people that saying that the son name is Yahuwshuwa, they basically saying that they put a whole nother name in there when they shorten the name down. Because it's no need if the name is Yasha to short, if it's coming from Yasha in 3068 to remove the 3068, the Yahoo, shorten it down to Yasha and not put Yasha there, but put Yeshua there. This is what we need to understand. So for brothers and sisters, it's simple. It's a false name, okay? The people that believe that the name is Yahuwshuwa, these are people these are just people that are under the powers of darkness, man. They're under the powers of ignorance. You know what I'm saying? If you sit up here and believe that the writer that wrote these scrolls will put two different names in the same exact verse, you have to understand that this begins to fall into the category of like mental health, okay? Because why would I be talking about one person and put two different names for that person and create all of this confusion? The Father is not the author of confusion. This is what we need to understand. Now, we're getting ready to look at the next name, Yahuwshuwa, okay? Now, the people that say that the son's name is Yahuwshuwa, they're getting that by saying the Yod, they saying that this is Yah. The Hey, they say that that's Ha. The Wa, they say that that's Wa. Then you have the Shin, they say it's SH, and then they have the I. This is how they get Yahuwshuwa. Now, the first thing that we have to understand is that we know that this Yod-Hey-Wa is not no Yahweh, okay? We have to grasp that. We know that that's Yahoo, okay? So once you remove that Yahoo out the way, and if you're saying that Yahweh, they're getting that from that, once we look at the Shin and the Ayin, they have Shai there. So the question we have to ask ourselves is, what does Shai mean, and how does that correlate with salvation? Okay, see, the Yahuwshuwa people have done exactly the same thing that the Yahuwshuwa people have done. The Yahuwshuwa people just say that this is Shai. They say that it's Shai. Okay, this is what the enemy do, and neither one of those are Hebrew words. This is what we need to understand. Now, the other thing that we have to understand is this I right here, okay, in Yahuwshuwa. We have to understand that the I is nothing more than the letter of the name. You see the teachers that break these names down and tell you, oh, this letter is I right here. You have to grasp that's nothing more than the name of the letter. You see, when you go back into the ancient Hebrew and you look at the pictographs, you have to understand that this letter I came from the picture that was the symbol of an eye. So this is why they call it I, but it's actually called I. Okay? So what you have to understand, that I is nothing more than the letter of the name. That letter does not make an I sound. And we have to understand when we're transliterating, we're chasing the same sound. Okay? We're not chasing the same letters, we're chasing the same sounds. This is why when you look at the name of Yahuwshuwa, okay, Yahuwshuwa, you see that the A is back there, right? Because see, we have to understand that this letter right here in Hebrew is what they call a Hebrew guttural, okay? It's a consonant, but it's a Hebrew guttural. And basically what that means is that the letter is pretty much pronounced in the back of your throat, okay? Is what we need to understand. Okay, so like when you say I, you say I, that I sound, that's how it's transliterated. So, you know, when you look at the name Yahuwshuwa, you have to understand that in English, this sound is closer to our letter A because it makes what? The I sound. But this letter is actually a consonant, okay? But we're chasing the same sound. So it's closer to the A sound in our alphabet because it gives us the I sound. This is why you see the A on the back of Yahuwshuwa. Okay? So we have to understand that that letter right there does not make an I sound. It's just the letter, the name of the letter. Okay? And you have to understand in the Greek, see the Greek, when they transliterated that letter, they transliterated it to mean to sound like O. Okay? Is where you get the O from in the Greek. But you have to understand if we're holding more close to the Semitic sound that this letter makes, it's more of an I sound. Okay? No scholar, nowhere, no teacher, no other Hebrew language will ever agree with you and tell you that this letter means I. Okay? It came from the I. That's true. Okay? Light mixed with darkness, but that letter does not make an I sound. Okay? This is what we have to understand. This is why when you look at names like Ba'a, okay? When you look up Ba'a, okay, in the Hebrew, you have to understand what you have here is what? The Bet, the Ayin, and the Lamed. Okay? This don't say bio or bio, it's Ba'a because the Ayin make more of a ah sound, okay, when it's pronounced. When you look at Gomorrah, as in Sodom and Gomorrah, okay, it's spelled in the Hebrew as what? Amor, okay, because Gomorrah starts with an ayin, and the ayin makes more of a ah sound, okay. When you look at Gaza, what is that in the Hebrew? It's Asa, because it starts with the ayin, okay? It makes more of an I sound, not no I sound, okay? We have to understand that the I comes from the yod. This is why they tell you that the yod is a double letter, that it can take on the consonant and the vowel, the I being the vowel that it can take on. This is why when you look at, if we look at the month of Abib, what do you have here? You have the Aleph, you have the Bet, you have the yod, and you have another Bet. But the I is coming from what? The yod. This is what we need to understand. So in the name of Yahuwshuwa right here, this letter does not make an I sound. It makes an I sound. This is nothing more than the name of the letter. Okay? This is no different than me saying, okay, this letter means Y. It ain't no difference. This is all they have done. That letter does not make an I sound. Okay? It's I. So we have to understand this is a false name. Okay? And I believe in the future I'm going to be going more in depth in this on Yahuwshuwa and Yahweh, because you got a lot of people that just are under bondage, and you know that Hebrew that they're speaking is Hebrew that they have created. This is what they created up there in New York. Okay, this is why when you ask them for information on this stuff, they have no resources because they know where it traces back to. They can't direct you nowhere. That's where it traces back to. Okay, that Hebrew that they speaking over there, if they was in the Middle East, the people wouldn't even understand what they was talking about. Okay, because this is stuff that they have created, and it's not holding in line with the actual Hebrew language, how it was actually truly spoken back in the ancient days. This is what we need to understand. And none of the people that say that that's the ancient Hebrew, they don't speak that language fluently. Nobody in the earth speaks that Hebrew fluently, okay, because they created it. Now, the last name we're getting ready to look at is the name Yahuwshuwa, okay? We're getting ready to put the name of Yahuwshuwa under the microscope. And I'm getting ready to show you how we arrive at the name Yahuwshuwa and how this is the only name that is in line with what's here in the prophecy, and there's no flaws in it. Okay? So now when we look at this right here, we know the yod is Y. Okay? We know that the hey is H. We know that the Y is W. You have the shin right there. You know that that's SH. Okay? Of course, we know the caboose is there, letting us know that the Y is there, okay? So we have the Y there, and then we have the ayin there with the A sound, okay? So now once we insert the vowels in there, only vowels we're going to be working with is A, I, and U, because these are the three original ancient Hebrew vowels, okay? So once we understand that, when we look at this, we know that this is Yahu, because number one, we know that the yod and the hey is Yah, and we know that the vowel that comes between the hey and the Y is what? Is you. How do we know that? Because we can just check and go to 3058. Okay, when we look up the name Jehu, which in Hebrew, if you look at 3058, this is what they have there. They have Yehu. Okay, but we know it's actually Yahu because, you know, scholars have already told us and have established that the yod and the hey is Yah. When you go to 3050, they tell you the first part of the sacred name. So this lets you know that this is Yah. That seals that. Okay. So once we understand that's Yah, when we look at 3058, we see the Yahu. The only thing that's missing here in their rendering is they have the E there. We know that that's Greek. So we know that this is Yahu right here. Okay. So we have Yahu. And then we have the shin, the Y, the ayin, and we know that the W is a double letter, and we know that it's the U. That letter can be doubled as, okay? And this is how we get Shua, okay? So when you add Yahu with Shua, what do you get? Yahuwshuwa, okay? This is the name, okay? Everything there is matching up with what's in the prophecy. We got everything there. There's nothing missing. All the letters are accounted for. This is the name. Okay, it's simple. Okay, this is how you get through the maze. Now, when you go to 3091, you see Yahuwshuwa. Okay, but what we have to understand is that E and O are not original Hebrew letters, okay, is what we have to understand. To those of you that saw the teaching that I did on YHWH, restoring the name, I explained to you how the A and the AI and the U are the three original Hebrew vowels. The E and the O came by the Greeks suppressing the true vowels in order to get those sounds, okay? So what we have to understand, when we look at the name Yahuwshuwa, if we just go back to 3058 and we look at the name Jehu for the first part of the name Yahu, this is what they have there in the Strong's Concordance. This is what they recognize that to be. So why would they, if they let you know that this letter Y right here, it holds a W and a U, and we see that there in the name, why would they tell you that this is Yehu? This is what we have to understand. This is why I explained to you that we know this is the name, because the people that's telling you that that this is the name, they don't even follow the stuff that they have laid down. How can you say that the name is Yehu, and then you get over here, and then you have an O right here for Yahuwshuwa when you go to 3091, and you have the same thing there. This is the same thing that you're going to see when you go to 3058. So how did they get Yahuwshuwa right there? And they just told you at 3058 that it's Yehu. This is what we have to understand. So even they don't follow the stuff that they have established. So this is how we know this is the name. Okay, then you have those Yahweh followers out there that will tell you that the only way to get this name, Yahuwshuwa, is only by the Masoretic vowel point system. And so we have to understand that the only letter that's in conflict here is this U. And I've proven to you, if you saw the teaching, YHWH, that the U is an original vowel that traces all the way back into the ancient Hebrew. It's a very simple thing to understand. You see, I took you way back before the Masoretic vowel point system was created. We know that was created around the 7th century CE. I took you all the way back into the BC times. We know that when the Greeks got their alphabet from the Phoenician alphabet, the same place that the Hebrew alphabet came from, they recognized that letter as a double letter. Y, and as W being a consonant and U being a vowel you can take on. That's why in the Greek you have the digamma, that was the W, the consonantal form that took on, and the upsilon was the U, the vowel that the Y could take home. When you look at the Aramaic alphabet, that alphabet originated from the same alphabet that the Hebrew alphabet came from, in the same place that the Greek alphabet came from, the Phoenician alphabet. Now, the Masoretic text today that we have is written in Hebrew, but it's written in Hebrew using the Aramaic characters, or the Aramaic alphabet. So when we look at these characters right here, we know that these are Aramaic characters. When we trace these characters all the way back to their origin, to when the Aramaics first got their alphabet from the Phoenician alphabet, what did this letter represent? What did they recognize this letter as? They recognize it as a double letter, W being a consonant and U being a vowel that it can take on. So all of the Semitic alphabets trace back to the Phoenician alphabet, the same place that the Hebrew alphabet came from. They all came from the same place. So if all of them recognize this letter right here to be a double letter, W and U, why do they keep saying that we need a Masoretic vowel point system to get this name? We don't need it. What part of that don't you grasp? I've took you all the way back into the BC period to where this stuff first originated from. You have to grasp that the Masoretic vowel point system is nothing more than a revision of what the Greeks had already established with the Metalectionis. This was established by the Greeks all the way back in the BC times. So when you trace everything back to its origin and see, well, what does this letter mean? Because everybody can say all day, oh, that ain't the ancient Hebrew. Ain't no U in Hebrew. But where's your proof at? And I think in the future, I'm going to do a teaching on that. Why? Because it's right there, my brothers and sisters. It's simple. When you trace all of these alphabets back to their origin, you see that they all came from the Phoenician alphabet. So you mean to tell me the Hebrew alphabet came from the Phoenician alphabet, all the other alphabets came from the Phoenician alphabet, and they recognize this character right here as a double letter, as W being a consonant and U being a vowel, but the Hebrews didn't recognize it. You see, we have to understand that the Hebrews were always in captivity. So when you look at all of these different transliterations of the name, they're in different alphabets. It's Hebrew, but it's in different alphabets. This is what we have to understand. So in order to transliterate, you have to have the same sounds in those alphabets that the name originally made in the Hebrew to transliterate it. This is what we have to understand. The Masoretic Testament is not written in the Paleo Hebrew. It's written in Hebrew using the Aramaic characters. This is what we have to understand. So my brothers and sisters, we have to understand that this name cannot be touched. They go against this name, but it's firm. When they tell you that the only way that you coming from the Masoretic vowel point system, they ain't went back in history and done their research. Okay? Because I just gave it to you. I'm telling you where to go to get the information. It's simple. If somebody's saying that, okay, the V is the letter, all we have to do is we know that this alphabet that we use today is the Latin alphabet. Okay, well, where did the alphabet come from? It came from the Greek. It didn't come straight from the Phoenician alphabet. It came from the Greek. Now, the Greek alphabet came straight from the Phoenician alphabet. So it's simple. This is how we trace everything back on what letters mean what. Trace the alphabets of each language back to their origin. They all trace back to the Phoenician alphabet. This is how we know. Okay, so at the end of the day, the Masoretic vowel point system only traces back to the 7th century. This stuff traces all the way back to the BC periods. Okay, so now, there you have it. Now, the last thing that I want to break down before I close out this teaching this morning, my brothers and sisters, is that now that we have got through the maze of all of the false names, we have lined everything up, we know that the name is Yahuwshuwa, the next thing that I'm getting ready to break down before I close out is the meaning of the name. Okay, because we got the name now we have to understand what the meaning of the name is. Now, in order to find out what the meaning of the name is, we have to trace that name back to its origin. Because why? We have to understand that Joshua, the son of Jehozadak, wasn't the only one who had that name. It didn't originate with him. So we have to trace the name back to its origin to find out the meaning of the name. So if you would, turn me to the book of Exodus. Exodus chapter 14. Exodus chapter 14. And we're going to start reading at verse number 13. It says, and Moshe said unto the people, fear ye not, stand still and see the salvation of Yahuwah. Okay, and we know that the word salvation there is Yeshua there. Okay, so now listen to this. Which he will shoot to you today. For the Egyptians whom ye have seen today, ye shall see them again no more forever. So now the reason why I took you here to Exodus chapter 14 is because what we have to understand, my brothers and sisters, and I want you to grasp this because this is where a lot of people get lost on this journey, trying to find out what the true name of the Mashiach is. See, they run to the name of Hosea, and this is where they get lost. You see, we have to grasp that Joshua, the son of Jehozadak, his name was never Hosea. His name was Yahuwshuwa straight from birth. His name wasn't changed. This was his birth name. Okay? But we have to understand about Hosea. We have to understand that at birth, Hosea's name was Hosea. Okay? And so we have to grasp that Hosea did not change his name from Hosea the son of Nun to Yahuwshuwa. Masha is the one that changed the name. So when people say, well, this name traces back to Hosea, this is where they get lost at, because we're not to look to Hosea. We are to look to Masha, because Masha was the one that changed his name. So we have to find out, well, why did Masha change his name from Hosea the son of Nun to Yahuwshuwa? Okay, and it's simple to understand, my brothers and sisters. You see, we have to understand that we know that Masha was not going to lead the children of Yahshua into the land. He was only going to do what? Get them halfway. You see what I'm saying? Joshua the son of Nun, he would get them into the promised land. So that was symbolic of the coming of the Mashiach. Okay, Masha would only get the people so far with the law, and Yahuwshuwa would come to bring them into the land. Okay, it was symbolic. Same thing with Joshua the son of Jehozadak. Joshua the son of Jehozadak was what? He was a high priest. This is why Yahuwah told the prophet, put a crown on him of silver and gold. Behold, the man whose name is the branch. Because why? Because this was representing the new priesthood that was coming under the Melchizedek order of kings and priests. Yahuwshuwa being our high priest and our king. This is what we have to grasp. So this is why we have to look to Masha for the meaning of the name. We don't look to Hosea because Masha was the one under the inspiration of the Ruach who gave him the name. This is what we have to grasp. So the name of Yahuwshuwa means that he is Yahuwah's salvation for those who cry out. Okay? This is the meaning of the name of Yahuwshuwa. How do we know that? Because you have Yahu. Because we know that with Yahu, okay, when you go to the Hebrew 30:58 again, and you look at the name Jehu, which we know in Hebrew is actually Yahu. When we look at the meaning of the name, what does it mean? He is Yahuwah. Okay, so we have the meaning of the first part of the name. He is Yahuwah. Okay, so now when we look at Shua, we know that that comes from the Hebrew 77:69, and we know that Shua comes from shower. Okay, and of course, if you go to shower at the Hebrew 77:68, it's going to say shower, but we know that there is no V in the Hebrew, so we know it's shower. So anyway, when you go to the Hebrew word Shua, what you have to understand when you look that up, it's going to tell you at 77:69, cry, riches, and hallow. Now, what people don't understand is that when you look at shower, it's letting you know that a cry is going forth for salvation. You see what I'm saying? This is why when we look at, we're still in Exodus chapter 4, let's just look at verse 10. It says, and when Pharaoh drew nigh, the children of Yahuwah lifted up their eyes, and behold, the Egyptians marched after them. And they were so afraid, and the children of Yahuwah cried out unto Yahuwah. So we have to understand that the cry has to go forth before you can receive the salvation. And of course, we know after that, he delivered the children of Yahuwah out of the hands of the Egyptians by the way of the Red Sea. This is why when you turn over to Exodus chapter 15, verse 2, when it says, the Lord, we know that that's Yah right there. Okay, we know Yah is there. So what we have to understand, remember in Exodus chapter 3, when Yahuwah told Moshe, I've heard the cry of the children of Yashua, and Yah has come down to deliver them. The cry went forth, and then the salvation came. So now after he has delivered them, look what he's saying right here. In verse number 2, in Exodus 15, Yahuwah is my strength and my song, and has become my salvation. Now we know the Hebrew word for salvation is Yeshua. So this is where the name of Yahuwshuwa came from. They understood that Yah was the son that came down to deliver them. This is why he says Yah has become my Yeshua. This is where the name comes from. Okay? But we have to understand that he is Yahuwah's salvation. Okay? Now, go with me to the book of Luke. Something else that I want to look at real quick. Something real interesting. Okay? It's simple, my brothers and sisters. You know, we have to take the time, man, to study the word. You know what I'm saying? And these things will be revealed to us, man. That's why the scriptures say, "Study, show thyself approved." Now, listen. We're in Luke chapter 2. Let's start reading at verse number 25. It says, "And behold, there was a man in Jerusalem whose name was Simeon, and the same man was just and devout, waiting for the consolation of Yahshua, and the Ruach HaKodesh was upon him. And it was revealed unto him by the Ruach HaKodesh that he should not see death before he had seen Yahuwah's Mashiach. And he came by the Ruach into the temple, and when the parents brought in the child Yahuwshuwa to do for him after the customs of the law, then took he him up in his arms and Barak Elohim and said," now listen to this, "Yahuwah, now lettest thou serve and depart in shalom according to thy word, for my eyes have seen thy salvation." So we have to understand that here was a man that Yahuwah promised would not die until he seen his salvation. Okay, this is why when we look at the name Yahuwshuwa, it means he is Yahuwah's salvation. Because we see the man saying that I have seen thy salvation. Now the interesting thing here is that that word salvation right there in the Greek is the Greek word soteria. Okay, I believe that's right, soteria. But now, of course, in this particular passage right here, I believe it's soterios, because you know, you begin to get into like the masculine forms and the feminine form, but it's the same word. It comes from soteria. It means salvation. Now they have another word in Greek that's called sozo. Okay, and that basically means to save. Okay, and soteria comes from sozo. Now, when you go back into the Old Testament and you look at the verses that I just gave you, that I just read in the book of Exodus chapter 15 verse 2 and Exodus 14 verse 13, one thing you're going to notice, especially if you're studying like on Blue Letter Bible, if you go on those verses and you tap on the inner linear, you're going to see that they're going to have the Hebrew text, okay, that the English translation is coming from, but then right after that, you're going to have the the Greek translation of the LX. Now, the reason you see that is because we have to understand that the LX, the Greek Septuagint, is the oldest translation in the earth today of the Old Testament. Okay, the Masoretic text only traces back to around the 8th and 9th century. Okay, and they used the Leningrad and the Aleppo codexes, you know, as the authority, with the Leningrad as the authority. Okay, but both of those codexes traces back to the 9th, 10th century. The Greek Septuagint traces all the way back to, it is believed, to the 2nd and 3rd century BC. So this is why you see both of those renderings, those translations in the Hebrew and in the Greek, because the Greek is really the authority, okay? And this is what they use as the authority for the KJV. So what we have to understand is that when we go to Exodus chapter 15, verse 2, and Exodus 14, verse 13, in the Greek, we're going to see for that sure, we see soteria, not sozo, okay, which will be equivalent to yasha, which means to save, because we have to understand the Father, he does yasha. But he yashas with his son. This is his salvation. Okay? So what we have to understand now is that they understood. So what we have to understand is that when we look at verse number 30 right here, where he says, for my eyes have seen thy salvation, really what he said is that for my eyes have seen thy Yeshua. Okay? This is what we have to understand. Now, the last thing that I'm going to touch on is the Shua and the cry. Because a lot of people go to 7769 and they get lost. Okay, they see the cry, they see the riches, and they don't grasp that with this letter shower, which comes from the shower, really it's the same thing, but I'm not even going to go down through that today. But when you look at the word shower or shower, okay, you have to understand that that word is very closely related to yasha. Okay, it's basically the same word, but it's letting you know that a cry is going forth for the salvation. Okay, this is what we have to understand. And so when people see that, they disregard it because they say, well, yasha mean to say. We have to understand the Father, he yashas, but he yashas through his son. Okay, this is what we have to understand. And this sure is letting us know that a cry is going forth for salvation. Now, go with me to the book of Hebrew, because you have people that say, well, oh, the Mashiach, he don't cry. Okay, you know what I'm saying? They think that this is something that we are supposed to do, that this has nothing to do with the Mashiach. But you have to understand, even the Mashiach had to cry out for salvation. This is what the cry is signifying, okay? And people disregard it. Now, we're in the book of Hebrews, chapter 5, because I understand there's a lot of people out there that just are unlearned, so it's necessary for me to break these things down. Now, in Hebrews chapter 5, let's start reading at verse number 6. It says, as he saith also in another place, thou art a priest forever after the order of Melchizedek. So we know this is speaking about Yahuwshuwa, right? Now listen in verse number 7. Who in the days of his flesh, so we know this talking about the Mashiach, when he had offered up prayers and supplications with strong crying, okay, and tears unto him that was able to save him from death, and was heard, and that he was feared. So to the people out there that say that the Mashiach don't cry, that ain't what the scriptures state. The scriptures tell a whole different story. The scriptures, Apostle Shaul helps us to understand that it says in supplications with strong crying and tears. So he let us know that the Mashiach did cry. Okay, because they always say, well, the Mashiach don't cry. We do that and then we receive salvation. You have to understand that the cry has to go forth for the salvation. What Apostle Shaul has just took us back to is to when Yahuwshuwa was on the state and he cried out to the Father and said, Father, why have thou forsaken me? A cry has to go forth for the salvation. And we know after that, what did the Father do? He delivered him. So this is what we have to understand. And to the people out there that think that the Father is the Son, this lets you know that the Father and the Son is two different people. If the Son was the Father, why would he have to cry out to somebody else to save him? So the Father is showing his dominance here. He raised Yahuwshuwa from the dead, and he gave Yahuwshuwa the power to raise us up from the dead. This is what we have to understand. So, what I want to point out here is that when it says, and was heard, and when it says, and tears unto him that was able to save him from death, what is the Greek word there? The Greek word there is sozo, not soteria. Okay? Because yes, the Father do, Yasha, he saves. But when he saves, he's saving through his son, Yahuwshuwa. He's our salvation. Okay? When he comes. This is what we have to understand. Okay, it's simple. Now, and also another thing is when you look at the word Yasha in the Hebrew, when you go back into the Tanakh, when you look at the Greek Septuagint, they translate the word Yasha as sozo in certain places. Okay, you're not gonna never see it translated as soteria. So they understood that it was two different words, just like in the Hebrew you have Yasha and you have Yeshua. Okay, so we know that Yeshua is a feminine past participle of Yasha, just like soteria is derived from sozo. So they understood these to be two different words. They understood this. So now, the last thing that I want to point out is that when he says with strong crying, that crying there in the Hebrew is, in the Greek is the word krage. The Greek word right there for crying is krage. Okay. Now, the interesting thing with that is go with me to the book of Jonah, and this is the last place that I'm going to go. I'm going to go to Jonah chapter 2. Jonah chapter 2. And I'm in Jonah chapter 2, and I'm going to start reading in verse number 1. It says, Then Jonah prayed unto Yahuwah his Elohim out of the fish's belly, and said, I cried by reason of my affliction unto Yahuwah, and he heard me. Out of the belly of hell cried I, and thou heardest my voice. Now what I want to explain to you is that word cry there, you have two different meanings for that same word in the Hebrew. So the first cry that you see right here when it says, and I cry by reason, it's the Hebrew word kara. Okay? That's the first cry. Now when he says right here, excuse me, when he says, and out of the belly of hell cried I, what Hebrew word is there? It's the Hebrew word shower. Shower or shower. The Hebrew 7768, the same place that the Shua comes from. So what we have to understand is that when we look at the Greek right there, we have to understand that we see the word krake there for the Septuagint translation of that Hebrew word. So this is what we have to understand. So this is why we have to understand that the cry is associated to the salvation, because the cry has to go forth from the salvation. Just as we see here with Jonah. Jonah cried out to Yahuwah from the fish's belly, and we know that what? Yahuwah delivered him. This is what we have to understand. So the cry has to go forth from the salvation. It's simple. So my brothers and sisters, there you have it. Yahuwshuwa is the correct name. Okay, you have the correct transliteration, you have the correct spelling. You have a lot of people that when they spell the name, they remove the Y there and they just say, it's Yahuwshuwa. But we have to understand that this is an incorrect spelling, because I've been teaching you this, and I'm going to just keep teaching to you. When you go to the Hebrew language, you have to understand that the Hebrew alphabet consists of all consonants. Okay, the vowels that's in the Hebrew language is coming from the consonants. So there's no way that you can get the U without getting it from the Y. This is what we have to understand. You cannot get the U without going through the W. This is why the W is there. This is why I've explained to you in modern day Hebrew, they have vowel pointing to let you know the vowels that go there, because the alphabet consists of all consonants. This is why when I showed you in the month Abib, the I that's there, that's coming from the Yod. If you look at it in English, you see the I there. But in Hebrew, the Yod is there because the Yod is representing the I. There is no separate letter for the vowels in Hebrew like we have in our language today. We have 5 vowels plus our consonants. You don't have that in Hebrew. Everything that the vowels are inside of the consonants. So when you have the W there, the W is the correct spelling, because the W is letting you know that this is where the U coming from. Without the W, you can't get the U. So when people spell it like that, it's an incorrect spelling. Even the Greeks showed you that they recognize it as 2 letters. In the name Iesus. You saw the Omicron and the Upsilon. Okay, because they understood that the vowel was coming from the consonant. It's simple, my brothers and sisters. So there you have it. I just showed you how to get through the maze of all of the false names to get to the true name. Okay, there's nothing in the earth that can challenge this or go against this, although they try. Okay, we looked at the name Yahushua. it's in conflict with what's up here, okay? If you saying that this is Yahuwshuwa in the scriptures, when you get to that, we know that's not Yahuwshuwa. So when you read that and the Y is there, if you say that's Yahuwshuwa, then you're in error. This is what we have to understand. The Dead Sea Scrolls plus on top of that prove that they're in error, because we can see other places in the Masoretic text where the 5-letter rendering appears, the 6-letter rendering appears, but we see the 5-letter rendering in the in our Tanakh. And the Dead Sea Scrolls is the authority because it predates the Masoretic text. So we know that the 6th letter is there. And so when we look at our Masoretic text and we see the vowel point, then you know under the caboose that the Y is there. This is in harmony with the 6th letter, because now this is acknowledging the 6th letter rendering of the name, and both of those names are in harmony. If you remove that caboose, you have 2 different names. You may say this is Yahuwshuwa, but what about this name that appears for the same person in the Masoretic text? So with the name Yahuwshuwa, we clear everything up. We know that the caboose is representing the Y. Okay, we know this. And so we have the 6-letter rendering and we have the 5-letter rendering. Everything is in harmony. There's no confusion. Yahuwshuwa, that I, that's only the name of that letter. That letter right there does not make an I sound, it makes an I sound. You talk to anybody speak Hebrew, Arabic, all of them will tell you that that letter does not make an I. It don't matter where you look at. No scholar is going to say that letter is, makes an I sound. It may be the name of the letter, but the sound it makes is an I sound. Okay? This is what we have to understand. And the same thing with Yahuwshuwa, you have a Y that's there that you have not dealt with, that you have skipped over. So those names are flawed. The other names, I don't even need to waste time on them. They are false, bits and pieces. Nothing that lines up even close to the name that's in the prophecy. So I just showed you how to get through the maze. You know, anybody that want to go more in depth, I'm gonna leave my email and also my Skype address if anybody want to go more in depth in this, because I mean, it's necessary for people to come into the accurate knowledge of the truth of, you know, what the Mashiach's true name is and what the Father's true name is. So I have to stay on top of this, my brothers and sisters. So on that note, I'm going to lead this teaching to you this morning in the name of our King, Yahuwshuwa, HaMashiach, Shalom.